Hi everyone, Rocker here. I'm excited to be able to announce that we are going to be starting a new project. And it's a fairly simple thing, but we talk in a lot of detail about gore and where does the source come from? Does it come from what other people say? Does it come from other people's life experiences? Or should it be coming from the books? Now, the books are the source, and it's from them that we can glean a lot of knowledge and understanding about what gore is. So, what we're going to be doing over the next several months is we're going to be taking 3 chapters every single week, and we're going to be discussing in detail about different elements within those chapters and some key verses that we can find applicable and that we can apply to our lives. So, the first book that we're going to be looking at is obviously book number 1, Tarnsman of Gor. And if you are able to get this book, I would encourage you to be able to purchase it and to be able to follow along with what we're going to be doing. Now, understand that there are 35 books and there is a little bit of money involved, but it is an investment that you need to make. Um, Reading the books, reading the storylines, seeing how the characters grow and mature, and finding those nuggets within the books concerning philosophical truths, as far as the Gorian ethos and things like that, are very key that will really help you in your Gorian walk. So, book 1, Tarnsman of Gor, the first 3 chapters. First of all, we're going to be talking just a little bit of backstory about how this all came about. And that in the very first chapter is that we read about Taro Cabot and the fact that he is a graduate of the University of Oxford over in England. And he's done relatively well. He wasn't this spectacular scholar. He was just average, but he ends up getting an opportunity to come to the United States and to be able to be involved in a liberal arts college in New Hampshire. So he ends up grabbing this opportunity and ends up traveling over to America. Now, when he comes to America, is he's getting to know the lay of the land and that, and he decides that he wants to be able to go out and go on a camping trip into the woods outside in New Hampshire, which is a pretty well almost all woods. But he decides that he wants to be able to go on a 3-day camping trip. So he ends up going on this camping trip. And when he's out there, some strange things are start to happen to him. And the first thing that ends up happening is that he has this feeling that he's being watched. And he's not sure what it is. And he comes across an envelope. And I just want to read a passage. And this is very key because it sets up the storyline for later on. And that inside this envelope, when he finally does open it, is that it says, the 3rd day of February in the year of our Lord, 1640. Now, this is 300 years before that Taro Cabot actually recognizes. And it says, Taro Cabot, son, forgive me, but I have little choice in these matters. It has been decided. Do whatever you think is in your own best interest, but the fate is upon you, and you will not escape. I wish health to you and your mother. Carry on your person a ring of red metal, and bring me, if you would, a handful of green earth. Discard this leather, it will be destroyed. With affection, Matthew Cabot. Now, Matthew is Taro's dad, and Taro had always been under the impression of the fact that his dad had abandoned him and his mother, and basically left them to be able to fend for their own, which was not the case. Now, you need to remember is that Taro came from England. This letter is found in the wilderness in New Hampshire. So it's an interesting storyline, but it's all part of the backstory. So that's the first thing that ends up happening. And then he ends up basically finds his letter, and then he starts walking whatever, and his knapsack basically burst into flames. The envelope with the letter burst into flames, but the red crest which is in the form of a seed, it doesn't burn up. And so that is basically chapter 1. Chapter 2, we end up reading a lot about the fact that, he meets his father. And as he meets his father, he gets to, his father starts sharing with him about what Gor is all about. Tarls at this point has been transported through acquisition to Gor, and he's starting to realize, hey, where am I? What's going on? And he meets his father, and it's called the Counter Earth. And there's a lot of detail throughout chapter 2 explaining what the Counter Earth was, a little bit about society. But one of the things that comes up very clear is the fact that the aspect of the homestone. And homestone is 2 words, not 1 word. It's always 2 words. And one of the things is that Matthew, his father, ends up sharing with him is the fact that with the homestones is that the homestones come naturally in time to acquire a mystique, or something of the same hot, sweet emotions of our native people of Earth feel towards their flags being invested in it. Is that the homestone is more than just a rock. It is similar to what the Americans have with their flag, is that there's a feeling of patriotism, a feeling of identity. You are proud of not just that flag, but everything that it represents. The homestone is the same way. Here is my homestone. It's fairly heavy. This actually comes from Purvis Lake, which is the homestead of my family back in the 1800s. And it's outside of Lucknow, small village, and there's actually a lake there called Purvis Lake. And this homestone actually looked over. It was this was part of some of the pillars that were at the front of the home. And when the home was demolished, I was fortunate enough to be able to find this. Now it's unique. It's made out of granite, but if you take a look at it, the fact that it actually has 3 sides. And so I found that, and I found that to be quite unique, and I claimed that as my homestone. Within the homestone, okay, every Goring should belong to one. It doesn't matter if it's just you yourself, if it happens to be your house with you and your master and whatever, or if it happens to be a group of Gorians come together. Homestones are important, and it's very symbiotic, and it has a deep meaning to it. So chapter 2 talks a lot about homestones. And next chapter, the last chapter that we're going to talk about, is about the Tarn. And that's the name of the chapter, but we're not necessarily going to talk about the Tarn. But we're going to talk about the education aspects that take place in the 3rd chapter. And that Tarl Cabot is learning more about Gorian society. He's being taught by scribes, by warriors, about how to be the best Gorian that he can be. He needs to be able to gain knowledge, and he needs to have practical application through fighting, through research, through understanding, to be able to be the best Gorian that he can be. One of the things that I found interesting, and it, again, my own mindset, is that on page 23 of the first book is that there's a representation of what a scribe looks like. And to me, for the most part, when I think of scribes, this is exactly what I think of. And it's about Torm. And Torm is a scribe. He's one of the most wisest men in on Gor to be able to teach, but he does not really look presentable. He really does not look like he's a man of power and of authority. And I just want to read this passage because I found it comical. And Torn was of slight build and reminded me of an angry bird which enjoys nothing so much as scolding squirrels. His red robes were worn through in a dozen spots, only 2 or 3 which had been ineptly attacked by thread. One of his sandals had a broken strap that had been carelessly knotted back together. The Gorians I had seen in the past few weeks had tended to be meticulous in their dress, taking great pride in their appearance, but Torm apparently had better things to do with his time. And and he did. Is he really didn't care about his appearance. Is he cared about knowledge. He cared about the books. But just that visualization of what a scribe is, again, it's my own personal feeling, but that's how I look at scribes in general. One of the things is that with Torm as well, is that I felt drawn to the man and the sense of him something that I admired, a shrewd and kind spirit, a sense of humor, and a love of learning, which can be one of the deepest and most honest of loves. His love for the scrolls and for the men that had written them, perhaps centuries before, and that most impressed me about Torm. And the fact that that's what we want to do over these next few months is that we want to be able to get into the books, to be able to read the books in detail, to find some of these golden nuggets, and to be able to impress upon each other the love of what Gor is. And that's by reading the books, gaining that knowledge, and sharing it with each other. So thank you. I encourage you to be able to, next week, we will be doing this every Monday night, is that we are going to be going over chapter 3, 4, and 5. So basically, the next chapter is a very key one, and the subtitle is called The Mission. So if you can get Tarnsman of Gor, I will be recording next Monday and putting it up on YouTube, and then we will be doing a link in the So You Are New to Gor group and have people comment on it. So thank you very much, and please consider really getting involved because this is important. Thank you.